I'm going to demonstrate a few basic things about Agile Toolkit. The way how I'm going to do that is by explaining you in a very simple examples how Agile Toolkit base is structured. There are a number of abstract classes at the bottom of the class chain of Agile Toolkit. The class at the very bottom of the chain is called abstract object. Any object in Agile Toolkit is inherited through some chain of extensions from this class. What's common to all the classes in Agile Toolkit is the properties owner and API. It is also common to how objects are being initialized. Agile Toolkit does not make use of constructors. Instead, it defines a function called init, which is always called consistently without arguments. Another thing which is common to all the objects in Agile Toolkit is the ability to add additional objects inside any object. This is a very simplified implementation of add method. It accepts an argument, a class. It is going to create instance of that class, and it is going to set owner and API properties for the newly added class, afterwards calling init function. Any code you place in this init function can rely on those properties to be filled out properly. Abstract object is inherited by the other three main classes of Agile Toolkit: Abstract View, Model, and Controller. Abstract View is implementing any object which is capable of producing HTML output. What's common about all those objects is that presence of a template. Abstract Model always represents some real-world object, such as user, transaction, payment, and so on. Abstract Controller class is designed to change behavior on some other object. The reason why many of the properties of classes in Agile Toolkit are defined as public is so that some controllers would be able to access them. Next, let's look at the structure of application classes. There are three major application or API classes in Agile Toolkit: API CLI, API Web, and API Frontend. The API CLI class doesn't really do much and is designed for your command line applications. API Web class supports many things required from the web application. Finally, API Frontend is built on top of API Web, but it introduces logic of page routing. Let's look closer at how API Web is working. API Web implements that init function. It extends and always calls a parent, then adds a controller for page routing and sends headers. The function main is a function you're calling from your index.php file. It's designed to initialize layout and execute rendering function. This is how execute is looking. It is going to render all the objects recursively first, and then the template of actual application is being rendered. This property is available in API class because API is actually inherited from abstract view. Finally, let's take a look at the example of your application. When you're building your own application, there are only a couple of things you need to do. First, you need to extend the application with your custom methods. I'm defining my app and I'm adding authentication to the initialization. That means that any request sent to this application will be passed through this basic authentication controller. Next, the layout manager of API frontend is going to follow a couple of rules, and it will look for class name like this for the page name of hello. The page class is actually extending abstract view as well. When we're defining our own pages, it's important that we call the parent initialization first. Afterwards, we can add any views or any other objects on our page, like this. We don't need to worry about rendering, since rendering is being done recursively for all the objects in the system.